Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 players that the experts are wrong about in 2024 fantasy football. We're going to be talking about 5 players, some of which that I like more than the expert consensus rankings, and some of which that I think the experts are wrong about in the opposite direction, and I don't like as much as the expert consensus rankings. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, then please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into 5 players that the experts are wrong about in 2024 fantasy football. We begin with the first player that the experts are wrong about, and that is George Pickens, wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros have him as the wide receiver 31 at pick 59. Underdog Fantasy ADP wide receiver 28 at pick 42.2. Now, if you asked me a couple of weeks ago about George Pickens, I would have told you that I don't love George Pickens, even though he wasn't coming at a super high price. I would have basically blocked that idea like LeBron James blocked Andre Iguodala. I would have denied vehemently about the fact that I don't really want to touch him. Pause, right? I didn't really trust George Pickens, but the more and more I have thought about it, the more and more I realize that coming off the board as the wide receiver 31 in expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros, I think that is just ridiculous. That is just too low for the potential of George Pickens. We have now recently heard that the Steelers plan on making George Pickens more versatile in terms of his formation alignments. He confirmed to reporters at minicamp on Wednesday that he's playing in the slot more than ever due to the new offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. Now, I know all my homies, all you guys hate Arthur Smith, and rightfully so, right? That is the guy that terrorized Bijan Robinson's rookie season, giving Tyler Algier unneeded carries. But we gotta kind of push that to the side, because even if we don't love Arthur Smith, the fact that George Pickens is going to be utilized more in the slot like he was in college is a huge plus for George Pickens. One of the main reasons as to why we are going to see George Pickens more in the slot is because Diontae Johnson is now on the Carolina Panthers. And if you look at the Steelers depth chart, there is no one even in the same stratosphere as George Pickens. After Pickens, they've got guys like Van Jefferson, who's just really never caught on. He's had a game or two where it's like, oh, look, that's Van Jefferson. But besides that, nothing much, right? They got a rookie in Roman Wilson. We'll see how he is. Maybe the Russell Wilson to Roman Wilson, the Wilson to Wilson connection is 5G LTE. Maybe people are drafting him later on in best ball drafts. But Roman Wilson isn't going to take George Pickens' job. They've got Calvin Austin, and they've got Scotty Miller. We all remember a couple of years ago with Tom Brady. Scotty Miller's the next Julian Edelman, when in reality, Scotty Miller can't even be the producer of Julian Edelman's podcast, right? Scotty Miller just isn't all that good. So George Pickens is going to be the clear leader in targets on this team, which would not have been said entering into last season because Diontae Johnson was there. Now, despite the fact that the quarterback position was downright diabolical in Pittsburgh, you've got guys like Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, as well as Mason Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, playing quarterback. Now, I am far from someone that's going to get on my knees and fondle the balls, metaphorically, of Russell Wilson, give him the Gawk Gawk 9000 special, but Russell Wilson is better than those scrubs. And still, there were some bright spots for George Pickens. Now, overall, he finishes as the wide receiver 30 in PPR, 36 in PPR points per game, 17 games played. He has over 100 targets, 106 targets, 28th at wide receiver, 63 receptions, 36th, 1,140 receiving yards, 16th, 5 total touchdowns, 29th. But if you look at the efficiency stats, things probably should have been a lot better. if the Steelers just had somewhat competent quarterback play. I'm not asking for them to have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, Matthew Stafford type quarterback play, right? Just halfway decent, and Pickens would have been a lot better. 5th in yards per target, 1st in yards per route run. He was 11th in yards per team pass attempt, 7th in dominator rating, 16th in unrealized air yards, and 78th in target accuracy rating. With Deontay Johnson now gone, with the competition being very low in this Pittsburgh Steelers offense, we could see Mr. Unlimited Russell Wilson, or maybe even Justin Fields, force the ball to George Pickens. So again, while a couple of weeks ago I was a little bit pessimistic about George Pickens, I'm starting to like him a ton. The number 2 player that experts have wrong right now is Tank Dell, wide receiver of the Houston Texans. The man got shot, and he's still breathing. ECR wide receiver 32 at pick number 60, right behind George Pickens, who was the wide receiver 31 at pick 59. Underdog ADP for Tank Dell, wide receiver 26 at pick 36.6. Now, last year in Tank Dell's rookie season that sadly got cut short due to injury, he was the wide receiver 39 in PPR, wide receiver 19 in PPR points per game. It seemed like if you picked up Tank Dell, or if you rubbed a crystal ball and for some reason foresaw so deep into the future that in your redraft league you drafted Tank Dell, it felt like you had all of the correct eggs in your basket, that you had the fucking golden ticket, Willy Wonka style, and you were going to just dance your way into the end zone, right? Dance your way to the fantasy football championship with Tank Dell dropping his nuts in defenses' mouths weekly. And then he gets hurt, but he plays 11 games, 8 starts, 75 targets, 6.8 per game, number 56. 47 receptions, 4.3 per game, 709 receiving yards, 64.5 per game, and 7 total touchdowns, 18th at wide receiver. He ranked 21st in yards per target, 21st in yards per reception, 14th in yards per out run, 11th in fantasy points per route, 10th in fantasy points per target. Now, a lot of people are going to worry because, Nick, don't you know that Stephon Diggs is there and they also have Nico Collins? And Nick, don't you just have a real hard-on for Nico Collins? You always talk up Nico Collins. And while I have this affinity for Nico Collins, that doesn't mean that I think that Tank Dell is a bad pick. I love Tank Dell as the wide receiver 32 because you know that this is a guy that could have multiple games this season where he is a top 5 wide receiver, even potentially the number 1 wide receiver due to how good this offense is going to be and due to how much CJ Stroud trusts him. And you don't have to draft him inside of the top 30 at the wide receiver position. So Tank Dell, if you load up wide receiver early, could be your wide receiver 3. Maybe in some drafts, he could be your wide receiver 4. If Tank Dell is your wide receiver 3 or number 4, you're going to have more consistent pieces on your roster, and Tank Dell is going to be that power punch, right? That Alex Pereira hand to the chin that sends you straight to heaven, right? Tank Dell has that week winning upside. Tank Dell recently mentioned on a podcast with CJ Stroud that he looks up his name on the internet and is hunting for motivations. He's hunting for guys that aren't looking for Tank Dell to be that good. So something that you could do is, hey, at Tank Dell, you scumbag, I didn't like how you performed last week. Do something for me, you bum. And then, maybe he'll just pop off. Now, I would never actually tweet something negative at a player. I don't believe you should do that, but it was for joke purposes. But Tank Dell also mentions that he's looking at everyone who says he's the wide receiver 3 on the Texans, and he's looking at that. He's really looking like, hey, I'm going to prove those guys wrong. Stroud has also recently mentioned on an offense that he could build a hypothetical offense, right, with every player in the NFL. You draft him, you put him on your team. He mentions not Nico Collins, not Stephon Diggs, but Tank Dell on that team of players from the whole NFL that he is going to build, put on his team. So that is very telling towards the connection that Tank Dell and CJ Stroud have. Is Tank Dell a more risky pick than George Pickens? Probably. Because George Pickens is the undisputed wide receiver 1 on the Steelers. Tank Dell might not even be the wide receiver 2, but I think with the upside there, with Stephon Diggs not looking the hottest for a lot of last season, I'm excited about what Tank Dell will do in year number 2. At number 3, we got James Conner, running back of the Arizona Cardinals. Expert consensus rankings on Fantasy Pros got him as the running back 21 at pick 70, underdog ADP running back 27, pick 95.1. Now, running back 27 on Underdog Fantasy, I wouldn't mind sprinkling James Conner on a couple of my best ball teams, right? Because I think that James Conner still has enough juice in the tank to have a couple of good games. And as the running back 27, that is fine. But in redraft, like expert consensus rankings, running back 21, you got to be fucking kidding me, because I don't got him inside the top 24. Now, I am as much of a James Conner truther as possible. I have been talking James Conner up when he was on the Steelers, when Le'Veon Bell got suspended for smoking the kush, maybe, or was that D'Angelo Williams, whatever. He was gone. Maybe it was the contract disputes. I don't know. That feels like ancient fucking history at this point. But James Conner arose. He played great. Then he's in Arizona. People start kind of counting him out, and I like him. People are fading James Conner last year, and I like James Conner. He was solid last year. But something tells me that this year might be a little bit different. While everyone has been clamoring for James Conner to finally fall down, have that fall off, I think this is the year where it will happen. Because behind James Conner previously, they never had a guy with the pedigree, the skill set of Trey Benson. Guys like Emari DeMarcado are not going to take the job of James Conner. That was never really going to happen. While people would prophesize, they would state that that was going to happen, those guys were not on the same level as James Conner, whereas Trey Benson easily could be. Now, I'm not sitting here and telling you guys that I think that Trey Benson is a must-draft running back, because I don't necessarily think that Trey Benson will take over and become the lead back without an injury to James Conner. What I will say is that I think Trey Benson will play enough of a factor to kind of X James Conner out of having a lot of value, especially as the running back 21. Like, I just don't really see it. Running back 21 to me just feels like too pretty of a penny to pay for James Conner. The Cardinals GM, Monty Ossenfort, great name, said, and the one thing that stands out about Trey is that when he does have a crease, he has the speed to break it and pop a long run, something that you don't often see in running backs that are his size. So I think he complements James very well. I think that Trey Benson would be considered one of the better handcuffs in the National Football League. And I think that come next season, Trey Benson will be the starting running back of the Cardinals. Again, do I think that James Conner is completely washed up? No. You look at his efficiency stats, 9th in true yards per carry, 7th in breakaway run rate, 16th in yards created per touch, 16th in yards per touch. This guy is still fine. He rushed for over 1,000 yards last season, 6th at running back. He can catch some passes, 41st in targets, 38th in receptions, 45th in receiving yards. Not the best, right? But 33 targets, 27 receptions, 165 receiving yards in just 13 games, and 9 total touchdowns, 12th at running back. So James Conner still has some gas left in the tank. He still has some juice. But I think they are going to use Trey Benson enough to kind of devalue Conner enough to where you didn't really want to draft him as the running back 21. I think ranking him inside the top 24 is a little bit crazy. And I think as we get deeper into the offseason, the experts will come correct on that. But you never know, because everyone kind of loves them some James Conner, but not this year. Dikembe, no. At number 4, we got Zamir White, running back of the Las Vegas, turn your volume down, Raiders. ECR, running back 23, a pick. That was kind of weak. Running back 23, pick 77, underdog ADP, running back 23, pick 88.1. Now, I've been talking about Zamir White for a while. This whole offseason, ever since I started making videos, I've been talking him up. Now, we just heard Antonio Pierce essentially tell us what's going to happen. Now, if you listen to that clip and you're not listening closely, head coach Antonio Pierce talks about how kind of a 1A. Is he the 1A, the 1B? Is he the A, the B? But then he mentions Zamir White, 200 to 300 carries. Now, he does, in a way, talk about Alexander Mattison positively, right? He talks about how, oh my gosh, Zamir White could lose his job to Alexander Mattison. Alexander Mattison wouldn't take my fucking job if I was the starting running back of the Raiders, okay? I'm not worried about that. I think that's coach speak. No, Mattison ain't it. So I think that Pierce, while there's a lot of fat to trim around it, talked about essentially giving Zamir White 200 to 300 carries. Okay? Zamir White's stats last season weren't the best, right? Weeks 1 through 14, he's handing Gatorade to Josh Jacobs. He's not getting touches. But once Jacobs got hurt, he took a stranglehold over the backfield. It was like the fucking Darth Vader force choke. 4 out of 5 games, he had over 100 all-purpose yards, and on average, he had 3.2 targets per game. Now, in those games, he only scored 1 total touchdown. And while I don't think that the Raiders are going to become one of the most exciting offenses in the NFL, right? This is not going to be the fucking Dolphins, the Chiefs, the Bengals. Like, on paper, these excellent offenses. Like, the Raiders just don't have that. Gardner fucking Minshew is their starter. And while I have some Minshew fever at the end of the day, we all know Minshew ain't that good. Sure, maybe they got Aiden O'Connell, but he's not that great either. But what we do know, one thing though, women, they come, they go. We do know that Aiden Pierce is a run-the-ball enthusiast. He's going to want to run the ball. So Zamir White as the lead back on the Raiders, he should be going higher than the running back 23. I think people are going to keen in on this. Kind of like how people are going to start fading James Conner. I think people are going to start to hop on the Zamir White train, but it hasn't happened just yet. So at the running back 23, the experts got that wrong. He should be ranked higher, and I might even have to move him up my rankings by the next time we do a rankings video for the running back position. Before we get into player number 5 that the experts got wrong, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy. We mentioned their ADPs. If you want to do drafts right now, you should be hopping in best ball drafts. We're going to be doing best ball drafts on Underdog Fantasy all summer long, like the Kid Rock song, live streamed on this channel. If you want to join me, you can claim your special pick as well as up to $250 if you're a first-time depositor using code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. If you have a gambling problem, make sure you call 1-800-GAMBLER. Again, claim your special pick plus up to $250 if you're a first-time depositor using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. So player number 5 that the experts are wrong about would be Javonte Williams. Expert consensus ranking, running back 26, pick 81. Underdog, they've got it more right, but even them, I don't really love Javonte at running back 31. Pick 106.7. Light FM. Running back 29 in PPR last year, 33 in PPR points per game. Coming off of an injury, sure, you can excuse it all you want, right? Doesn't really look great, and he hasn't lived up to his expectations, these hefty expectations that we put on Javonte Williams coming out of college. 3.5 true yards per carry last year, 59th. 53rd in yards per touch. Sure, you could excuse the fact that they were loading the box like Roderick and Dire of Wimpy Kid loads the diaper up. 5th in defenders in the box. I get it, right? He can catch the ball. But we've already seen that Sean Payton has talked about how this is going to be a running back competition, that no one had the job during the offseason. He didn't think that Javonte earned the spot on top of the Iron Throne, fucking Daenerys Targaryen style, okay? With Williams being pretty meh so far through his career, I think you should be not just concerned, very concerned, capital V-E-R-Y, very concerned. Broncos reporter Ceci Lamey. If I pronounced that person's name wrong, I apologize. I believe it was a woman. I don't want to assume here. I don't remember off the top of my head. They said the top Denver running back looks like Jaleel McLaughlin. And they said, will Javonte even make the team? Do I think Javonte Williams is going to get cut? Fuck no, baby. But I do worry that he's not going to be the lead back. I am a Jaleel McLaughlin aficionado. I've been talking about this before this report even came out, that I think Jaleel McLaughlin has the inside track to be the guy. That was something you read in the beginning of June, guaranteed to be the truth. Obviously not. Obviously not, but does mean something when you hear Peyton talking about how this is going to be a running back by committee. This is like Williams doesn't really guarantee to have the job. And then we hear this. And then you look at the depth chart. They've got guys like Javonte, P. Ryan, Aldrick Estime, who they drafted, Jaleel McLaughlin, Blake Watson, who they drafted. Drafting 2 running backs? Like, does that sound like you have a lot of confidence in your guy, Javonte Williams? Doesn't to me. Could Javonte Williams have a resurgence year coming off the injury? I think so. I think he's good enough to do that. But is he so much better than Jaleel McLaughlin? So much better than these other guys that he's going to be the guy? I personally wouldn't shrug. I don't think so. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know if you agree or disagree with these takes. Let me know a player that you think the expert consensus rankings have wrong right now. If you're new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Hit it with the left, right. Make sure that if you are new to the channel, or you're not new to the channel, that you leave a like on today's video. Help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. I love you guys all deep down from the depths of my heart. Love you guys more than you will ever know. I'm so appreciative of you guys. I hope you guys have a great Friday or Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Whenever you watch this video, came out on Friday though. Love you guys all so much. Have a great one. As always, good boy.